Welcome to the Sleep-Inducing Hypnotic Stories channel. We start with a short introduction to help you receive the greatest benefits while listening to tonight's story for a peaceful sleep. You are entering a calm and peaceful space to help you melt away all the busy thoughts of the day and fall asleep easily and naturally by listening to the mystical, magical story of the day presented in a sleep-inducing hypnotic voice that will put you into total relaxation. The object of our 2-hour long-form videos is to quickly put you into a state of feeling the narration you are hearing while you close your eyes and relax. Your goal in order to fall asleep quickly should be to close your eyes at the beginning and just let go to feel the words rather than to process them. Think of it more as being a way to get bored to sleep and just let the tingles tingle. So get into your most comfortable position under a blanket with your head on a pillow now and close your eyes while you relax and listen to the narration. Whenever you feel like it, just let go of all thoughts and float off into a deep sleep. Don't worry, you always remain in full control as you listen to these stories and can bring yourself out of this relaxed state whenever you wish. You can also listen to or watch them anytime you are wide awake. However, we suggest you do not do so while driving or operating heavy machinery, so there will be no chance of you falling asleep. The average story length is approximately 2 hours, which allows those of us who need a bathroom break to take one and come back to continue listening where we left off. If you would like to listen for longer than 2 hours, you can set the video to replay automatically on any device you are using. Google can help you find the settings you will need. Listening on the TV with the sound lowered just enough to hear the breathy voice lulling me to sleep is my favorite method. After you awake refreshed and found that this video was helpful, please subscribe to our channel and click the bell to be notified when our next story posts. We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments section, and we'll try to answer any questions you have. Now get as comfy as you can as tonight's story begins. Close your eyes now if you haven't already. Let your breathing slow and drift with me across the vast, dark waters of the Atlantic Ocean, where mysteries wait beneath gentle waves, your body growing heavier with each passing moment, sinking deeper into comfort as we begin our journey into one of the ocean's most captivating secrets. The water stretches endlessly before you, a liquid mirror reflecting centuries of stories, your eyelids growing heavier, heavier still, as we float together across this boundary between the known world and the realm of legend, between Florida's sun-warmed shores, the pink sands of Bermuda, and the tropical embrace of Puerto Rico. 3 points forming an invisible triangle, a shape drawn not on any official map, but etched deeply into human imagination. Your breathing slows, matching the rhythm of distant waves. Picture yourself hovering above these waters, suspended between sky and sea, where the deep blue Atlantic holds its secrets close. 500,000 square miles of ocean, perhaps larger, perhaps smaller. The boundaries themselves shift like morning mist, undefined, unmarked, unrecognized by cartographers, yet recognized by something deeper within the human spirit, that ancient part of us that knows the ocean keeps its mysteries. Your muscles relax, releasing tension as you drift deeper into this story deeper into rest. The tale begins not in modern times, but centuries ago, when wooden ships creaked across unknown waters, when Christopher Columbus himself, that determined explorer, sailed these very waves in 1492, seeking a westward passage to distant Asia. His 3 ships, the Santa Maria, the Pinta, the Nina, cutting through water that had never known European keels. Your mind grows quiet, peaceful, as we journey back through time, back to those uncertain days when the world seemed both smaller and infinitely more mysterious. Columbus kept a diary, recording his observations with careful detail, and on September 15th, a Sunday evening, as darkness gathered over the ocean, he witnessed something that would echo through the centuries, a marvelous branch of fire falling from the sky into the sea, perhaps 4 or 5 leagues distant, a meteor. Some scholars say a perfectly natural phenomenon, and yet the way it burned against the darkness, the way his crew watched with widening eyes, there was something about it that lingered, that whispered of mysteries yet to come. Your body sinks deeper into relaxation, every muscle softening, as the story unfolds around you like a gentle blanket. 2 days later, on September 17th, Columbus discovered something more troubling. His compass, that faithful instrument that pointed sailors home, began behaving strangely. The needle drifted northwest when it should point north, 11 degrees off, a full point of deviation, and his crew, those weathered sailors who had already ventured farther than any of them had ever dared, they noticed too. Fear crept into their hearts. Depression settled over the ship like fog, but Columbus, ever the leader, hid his own concerns, ordering the north to be marked again at dawn, and at dawn, mysteriously, the compasses read true once more, as if the ocean itself had been testing them, testing their resolve. Your breathing becomes slower still, deeper, as you sink into the rhythm of this ancient story. But the strangest sighting, the one that would fuel centuries of speculation, came on October 11th, just hours before Columbus would glimpse the shores of the New World. At 10 o'clock that evening, standing on the stern of his ship, he saw a light, faint, flickering, like a wax candle rising and falling in the distance. He called to Pero Gutierrez, asking him to look, to confirm what his tired eyes were seeing. And yes, there it was, a light where no light should be, too far from any known land, bobbing, wavering, appearing and disappearing like breath against the glass. Your mind drifts, following that mysterious light across the centuries, your consciousness floating, peaceful, as the mystery deepens around you. What was that light that Columbus saw from his wooden deck? Was it fire on some unknown shore? Was it bioluminescent organisms dancing in the waves? Was it something else entirely? Something we cannot name. The ocean keeps this secret, as it keeps so many others, and you drift deeper, your body completely at ease, your mind wandering through these ancient waters, where explanations dissolve like salt in the sea. The region Columbus passed through, these same waters, would later be known by another name, the Sargasso Sea, a place already wrapped in its own mythology long before the term Bermuda Triangle was ever spoken. Imagine floating here, in water unlike any other on Earth, where 4 great ocean currents meet and circle, creating a vast gyre, a whirlpool of relative calm in the midst of the restless Atlantic. Your heartbeat slows, steady, calm, as you picture this strange sea. The water here is different, remarkably clear, impossibly blue, and covering its surface, floating mats of golden brown seaweed, sargassum, thick carpets of it, stretching to the horizon. Columbus's ships struggled through these living islands. The seaweed so dense his crew feared they would become entangled, trapped, pulled down to the ocean floor. Spanish sailors who came after spread tales of these treacherous waters, stories of ships becalmed, motionless for weeks in windless air, crews dying of thirst while surrounded by endless water. Your eyelids grow impossibly heavy, so heavy as you imagine drifting among those floating gardens, suspended between depths below and sky above. The Sargasso Sea became a graveyard of legend, derelict ships caught in its grip, their crews vanished or dead, hulls slowly rotting under the merciless sun, seaweed climbing their sides like grasping fingers. And beneath it all, beneath the floating gardens and the still surface, the ocean floor drops away into profound darkness. Trenches deeper than mountains are tall. The deepest point in all the Atlantic Ocean lies here, in the Puerto Rico Trench, at the Milwaukee depth, where the sea floor plunges to 27,493 feet, more than 5 miles straight down into eternal night. Your consciousness drifts downward, following that descent into darkness, into the peaceful void of deep sleep. But it would be centuries before this region gained its infamous name. Centuries of ships crossing these waters, some safely, some vanishing without explanation, until the 20th century brought new mysteries and new ways of disappearing. Your breathing matches the gentle rocking of waves, in and out, slow, peaceful, as we drift forward through time. The year is 1918. The world is still locked in the terrible grip of the Great War, and a massive vessel, the USS Cyclops, prepares to depart from Barbados. She is a collier, a cargo ship designed to carry coal, but on this voyage she carries something different. 10,000 tons of manganese ore, heavy, dense, valuable for the war effort, bound for Baltimore. 306 souls aboard, crew and passengers, setting out across familiar waters on March 4th. Your body grows heavier, as heavy as that ship laden with its cargo of ore. The Cyclops was enormous, 542 feet long, one of the largest ships in the United States Navy, surely too large to simply vanish, surely too substantial to disappear without a trace. And yet, she steamed away from Barbados into water that stretched empty to the horizon and was never seen again. No distress signal, no SOS tapping desperately through the ether, no wreckage floating where she should have been, no oil slick marking her grave, nothing, as if the ocean had simply opened like a mouth and swallowed her whole. Your mind grows quiet, still, as you contemplate this impossible disappearance. The Navy searched. Of course they searched. One of the largest search efforts in naval history. Ships crisscrossing the waters where Cyclops should have traveled, finding nothing, not a single piece of debris, not one life preserver, not a trace of the 306 people who had sailed away into blue emptiness. The official report offered no explanation. How could it? There was nothing to explain, only absence, only the silent testimony of an ocean that refuses to give up its dead. Your eyelids feel impossibly heavy now, your whole body sinking into the embrace of deep rest. And more mysterious still, the Cyclops had two sister ships, the USS Proteus and the USS Nereus, identical in design, converted to cargo duty during the Second World War, and in that later conflict, both of them vanished in the same region under nearly identical circumstances. No distress calls, no debris, no survivors, as if whatever took the Cyclops came back, hungry for more. 3 massive ships, 3 disappearances spanning decades, all in waters that gave nothing back. Your breathing slows to match the rhythm of eternal waves, peaceful, so peaceful, as the mystery deepens like twilight falling over the ocean. But if the Cyclops' disappearance was marked by silence, by the absence of any final message, the next great mystery of these waters would unfold in real time, documented minute by minute, voices crackling through the radio, growing more confused, more desperate, before falling silent forever. Your consciousness drifts, following those voices into the gathering darkness. December 5th, 1945. The World War has finally ended. Months of peace after years of terrible conflict at Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The afternoon is warm, 67 degrees. Clouds billow overhead in the current of a gusting southwest trade wind. Normal weather for training flights. Nothing unusual, nothing threatening. Your mind settles into the scene, comfortable, relaxed, as we watch 5 torpedo bombers prepare for takeoff. They are Grumman TBM Avenger aircraft, sturdy, reliable, each one carrying a crew of 3, except for one plane with only 2 men aboard. 14 naval aviators in total, a mix of Navy men and Marines, mostly trainees near the end of their instruction, led by an experienced pilot. Lieutenant Charles Carroll Taylor, a 28-year-old instructor with 2,500 hours of flight time, a combat veteran of the Pacific Theater, a man who knew these aircraft, knew the sky, knew the sea below. Your breathing becomes even slower, deeper, as you picture these young men climbing into their cockpit, not knowing they're about to become legend. At 2:10 in the afternoon, the 5 Avengers lifted into the Florida sky, beginning navigation problem number 1, a routine training exercise, so routine it barely warranted attention. They were Flight 19, the 19th training squadron of that particular day. Nothing special about the designation, nothing to mark them as different from Flight 17 or Flight 18. Just another group of students practicing the skills that might one day save their lives. Your body relaxes completely, muscles going soft, as we follow them into the sky. The flight plan was simple, elegant in its geometry. Fly due east from Fort Lauderdale for 141 miles, out over the crystal waters of the Bahamas, then north for 73 miles, then southwest on a final 140-mile leg back to base. A triangle in the sky, mirroring the larger triangle these waters would later form in human consciousness. They would practice bombing runs on the Hen and Chickens shoals, a shallow area marked on every chart, then return home before sunset. Their fuel would last 4 hours, plenty of time, more than enough. Your eyelids grow heavier with each word, each breath, as the story unfolds. The bombing practice went smoothly. The Avengers descended, released their practice torpedoes, climbed back into the afternoon sky. Lieutenant Taylor led them north, on schedule, everything proceeding exactly as planned. And then, 90 minutes into the flight, as they should have been turning southwest toward home, something began to go wrong. Your consciousness drifts, following the confusion that was about to envelop these men. At 3:45 in the afternoon, the radio towers at Fort Lauderdale picked up a transmission, not from Flight 19's designated frequency, but from an internal channel, the pilots talking among themselves, and what they heard made no sense. Lieutenant Taylor reporting to his flight. Both of his compasses had failed, both the primary compass and the backup, malfunctioning simultaneously, an unlikely event, an unsettling coincidence, and he was uncertain of his position, couldn't be sure which direction was which. Your mind grows cloudy, uncertain, mirroring that moment of disorientation over the endless ocean. The training pilots in the other aircraft reported similar problems. Compasses spinning, needles drifting, instruments that should be reliable suddenly untrustworthy, and below them, water, nothing but water in every direction, no landmarks, no reference points, just the sun beginning its descent toward the western horizon, and without instruments, without reliable direction. That sun became their only guide, but the sun can be misleading, especially to a disoriented pilot, especially over water that all looks the same. Your thoughts drift, scatter, like those pilots trying to find their bearings over an ocean that refuses to give them answers. For the next 3 hours, radio operators on the ground listened to increasingly desperate transmissions, fragmentary, distorted by distance and interference. Lieutenant Taylor seemed convinced he was over the Gulf of Mexico, that the islands he could see below were the Florida Keys, that flying northeast would bring them to the Florida mainland. But he was wrong, tragically wrong. He had passed over the Bahamas as planned, was already northeast of where he should be, and every minute flying northeast carried them farther out into the Atlantic, farther from land, farther from safety. Your breathing slows, deepens, as you feel the weight of their mistake, the way small errors compound, the way confusion breeds more confusion. Ground stations tried to help, tried to triangulate their position, tried to guide them home, but the transmissions were weak, garbled, fading in and out like breath. At 5:25 in the afternoon, a radio fix placed Flight 19 approximately 75 miles northeast of Coco, but this crucial information may not have reached the pilots, or if it did, they may not have believed it. Taylor seemed locked into his mistaken belief, his false certainty. Sometimes confidence can be more dangerous than doubt. Your mind knows this. As your body sinks deeper into rest, deeper into the comfort of not having to decide, not having to navigate, just drifting, peaceful, calm. By 6 o'clock, with the sun setting into the ocean, painting the water gold and crimson, the transmissions from Flight 19 grew weaker, the fuel gauges in those 5 aircraft dropping toward empty, and Lieutenant Taylor made a final decision, rather than risk flying in the wrong direction. They would ditch together, all 5 planes going down at once in the gathering darkness, attempting a water landing, giving themselves the best chance of survival. Rescue would come, surely rescue would come. Your eyelids flutter, closing, as darkness falls over the ocean, over the pilots, over the story unfolding in your mind. At 7:04 in the evening, the last transmission from Flight 19 crackled through the static, a final message from one of the pilots, and then silence. No more voices, no more calls for help, just the empty hiss of radio frequency. Searching, searching, finding nothing. The ocean had taken them. Your consciousness drifts toward the same silence, that same peaceful emptiness, where all questions cease, where confusion dissolves into rest. But the disappearances were not finished, not yet, knowing the planes would be out of fuel by 8 o'clock. The Navy launched a search and rescue operation. 2 PBM Mariner flying boats diverted from their own training flights. Square patterns to be flown over the estimated crash area. 13 rescue personnel aboard one of them. PBM-5, Bureau number 59,225, taking off from Naval Air Station Banana River at 7:27 that evening, racing to find their lost brothers before darkness made the search impossible. Your heart beats slowly, steadily, as we follow them into the night sky. The Mariner called in a routine message minutes after takeoff. Everything normal, everything proceeding as expected, and then, 20 minutes after leaving the safety of land, the rescue plane vanished from radar, gone, as completely as if it had never existed. Your mind struggles to comprehend. How does an aircraft simply disappear? How does it vanish from screens and from the sky? But the ocean knows. The ocean keeps this secret too. A tanker cruising off the Florida coast reported seeing an explosion, a fireball lighting the darkness at 7:50 that evening. Perhaps the Mariner. Those aircraft were known to leak fuel, their flexible fuel lines loosening in rough conditions. A spark, a flame, an explosion that erased 13 more lives in an instant. But even if this explosion was the Mariner, it does not explain the first disappearance, does not account for 5 torpedo bombers lost somewhere in the darkness, 14 men who climbed into aircraft that afternoon and never returned. Your breathing becomes slower, slower still, as you contemplate the scale of this loss. 27 men total, 6 aircraft, all gone in a single day. The next morning, as dawnlight crept across the water, the Navy launched the largest air and sea search in its history. 300,000 square miles of ocean to be covered. Every ship, every available aircraft, searching for 5 days, finding nothing. No wreckage floating on the surface, no debris field marking where the planes went down, no life preservers, no bodies, no trace. The ocean had swallowed them completely, as completely as it had swallowed the Cyclops decades before, and all the other vessels lost in these waters across the centuries. Your mind accepts this mystery, releases the need to understand, drifts into the peaceful not knowing that comes with deep rest. And so Flight 19 passed into legend, becoming perhaps the most famous disappearance in the region's history. But they were not the first, and they would not be the last. Ships and planes continued to vanish, some with explanation, mechanical failure or storm damage, but others simply ceased to exist, ceased to respond to radio calls, ceased to appear on radar or on the surface of the sea, leaving only questions, only speculation. only the growing sense that these particular waters held something unusual, something that defied easy explanation. Your consciousness floats on those questions, not seeking answers, just drifting, peaceful, calm, as the mystery deepens around you like warm water. It was not until 1964, almost 20 years after Flight 19 disappeared, that these waters received the name they carry today. A writer named Vincent Gaddis, working for a pulp magazine called Sargasso, published an article titled The Deadly Bermuda Triangle, linking together the disappearance of Flight 19, the loss of the Cyclops, and other incidents in the region, drawing an invisible triangle between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, and giving this vast stretch of ocean its ominous designation. Your mind pictures that triangle, those 3 points, the enormous expanse of water they encompass, and your body grows heavier, sinking deeper into comfort, as the name echoes in your thoughts. Bermuda Triangle, Devil's Triangle, a place where mysteries gather like storm clouds on the horizon. The name took hold in popular imagination, took root in something primal within human consciousness, perhaps because the ocean has always been mysterious to us, perhaps because we fear what we cannot see beneath the surface, perhaps because we need mysteries, need places where the rational world gives way to something stranger, something unknowable. Your eyelids are so heavy now, so impossibly heavy, as your mind wanders through these possibilities, not grasping, just observing, like watching clouds drift across an endless sky. In 1974, Charles Berlitz, grandson of the founder of the Berlitz Language Schools, published a sensational bestseller simply titled The Bermuda Triangle. The book captured something in the cultural zeitgeist of the 1970s, a time when people were ready to believe in the paranormal, in unexplained phenomena, in forces beyond scientific understanding. Berlitz's book suggested that the lost city of Atlantis might lie beneath these waters, that ancient technology might be interfering with modern instruments, that perhaps aliens were involved, that time warps or dimensional portals might explain the disappearances, wild theories, fantastic speculations, and yet the book became a phenomenon, selling millions of copies, cementing the Bermuda Triangle's place in popular culture. Your thoughts drift through these theories like smoke, insubstantial, dissolving, as your body sinks deeper into relaxation. And people wanted to believe, needed to believe, because the alternative was somehow worse. The alternative was that the ocean is simply vast and dangerous, that ships and planes crash for mundane reasons, that bodies and debris sink to unreachable depths, that there is no mystery, only the eternal indifference of wind and wave. But that explanation, that rational dismissal, it satisfies the mind but not the heart, not the part of us that yearns for wonder, for magic, for the unexplained. Your breathing slows to match the eternal rhythm of the sea, in and out, like waves on an empty shore. Your body rests now, completely at ease, as we drift deeper into the mysteries of these waters, deeper into understanding, or perhaps deeper into beautiful uncertainty. Your breathing flows like tides, steady, eternal, and the ocean spreads before your mind's eye. Holding its secrets in depths we are only beginning to explore, Let yourself sink further, further still, as we examine what lies beneath the surface, both literal and metaphorical. Your consciousness floating between sleep and story. The geological reality of this region is as fascinating as any legend, perhaps more so, because the earth itself has written a story here, in stone and sediment, in volcanic upheaval and tectonic patience. Your mind drifts downward, following the descent from sunlit surface waters into the dimness below, where light fades to twilight, and twilight fades to endless night. Your eyelids grow heavier, impossibly heavy, as you imagine this descent into the deep. The ocean floor beneath the Bermuda Triangle is not flat, not the smooth sandy bottom of shallow imagination. Instead, it is a landscape as dramatic as any mountain range on land. Vast abyssal plains stretch for miles, interrupted by underwater mountains called seamounts, by ridges where tectonic plates meet and grind against each other with geological patience, by trenches that plunge to depths that would swallow the highest peaks on Earth. Your body sinks, matching that descent, every muscle relaxing, releasing, as you drift downward through layers of increasing pressure, increasing darkness. The Puerto Rico Trench curves along the boundary between the Caribbean plate and the North American plate, a massive subduction zone where one plate slides beneath another with infinite slowness, creating the deepest waters in all the Atlantic Ocean at its deepest point, the Milwaukee depth. The seafloor lies 8,380 meters below the surface, over 27,000 feet, 5 miles straight down into cold and crushing darkness. Imagine dropping a stone into that abyss, watching it fall, and fall, and fall, for nearly an hour before finally striking bottom. Your mind follows that stone downward, your consciousness sinking, peaceful, calm, into depths where pressure would crush any human body, where darkness is absolute, eternal. In those depths live creatures that have never seen sunlight, fish with luminescent lures dangling before their mouths, jellyfish that pulse with ghostly light, giant squid whose existence was doubted until dead specimens washed ashore. The deep ocean is Earth's largest habitat, covering more than half the planet, and yet we have explored less than 5% of it. Less than 5%. Your breathing slows, matching the slow metabolism of deep-sea creatures, conserving energy in a world where food is scarce, where every calorie must be treasured. Your body knows this deep rest, this conservation of energy, as you sink further into sleep. And if a ship sank in these waters, if wreckage fell through the water column and settled on the bottom of the Puerto Rico Trench, it might never be found, never be recovered. The pressure at those depths would crush any submarine, any deep-sea vehicle we have yet designed. Sonar can map the contours, can show us shadows and shapes, but cannot tell us what those shapes are, cannot show us a ship's name or the faces of the lost. The ocean keeps its secrets, wrapped in darkness and pressure. Your mind accepts this, releases the need to know, drifts into comfortable unknowing. But it is not only depth that characterizes these waters. The surface itself presents challenges, mysteries, phenomena that blur the line between explained and unexplainable. Your consciousness rises again, floating up through layers of water, up toward light and air, where waves dance and wind blows and human vessels dare to venture. Your breathing matches the rhythm of those waves, gentle, hypnotic, carrying you deeper into this story. The Gulf Stream flows through this region, one of the most powerful ocean currents on Earth, moving warm water from the Gulf of Mexico along the eastern coast of North America and out into the Atlantic. It flows at speeds up to 4 miles per hour, carrying more water than all the rivers on Earth combined. A river within the ocean. And it is unpredictable, subject to meanders and eddies, capable of generating sudden, violent weather changes. Your mind pictures this vast flowing force, invisible beneath the surface, shaping weather, shaping waves, shaping the fate of any vessel caught in its grip. Where the Gulf Stream flows, it creates boundaries in the ocean. Lines of temperature difference, areas where warm water meets cold, and along these boundaries, weather systems can intensify with startling speed, a clear day becoming a violent storm in the space of hours or minutes, clouds boiling up from a blue sky, winds whipping from calm to gale force, waves building from gentle swells to walls of water. And before the age of weather satellites, before Doppler radar and computer forecasting, ships and planes often sailed into these sudden storms with no warning, no time to change course, no chance to seek shelter. Your body grows heavier, heavier, as you imagine the weight of those waves, the force of that wind. Hurricanes are born in these waters, great rotating storms that begin as disturbances off the coast of Africa, drifting westward across the Atlantic, gathering strength from warm water, spinning faster, growing larger, until they become monsters of wind and wave. The majority of Atlantic hurricanes pass through or near the Bermuda Triangle, especially during the months from June to November, peak season when the ocean is warm and the atmosphere unstable. Your breathing matches the circular motion of those storms, around and around, spiral arms reaching outward, drawing you deeper into their center, into the eye where everything is calm, so calm, perfectly still. Before accurate weather forecasting, ships often sailed directly into hurricanes, had no way of knowing a storm was coming until they saw the darkening sky, felt the rising wind, and by then it might be too late, might be impossible to outrun the approaching fury. Wooden sailing ships were particularly vulnerable. Even steel vessels could be overwhelmed, and aircraft caught in hurricane winds could be torn apart, thrown across the sky like leaves in autumn wind. Your muscles relax completely, going limp as you imagine surrendering to forces beyond control, beyond resistance, just letting go. And there is another phenomenon, rarer but perhaps more dangerous: rogue waves. Freak waves that rise from the ocean without warning, walls of water 2 or 3 times higher than the surrounding swells, 100 feet tall or more, capable of appearing even in relatively calm seas. Your mind creates an image, a ship traveling through moderate waves, rolling gently, and then suddenly looming out of nowhere, a mountain of water, vertical, impossible, and before the crew can react, before they can turn into it or brace for impact, the wave strikes. Tons of water crashing down, snapping the ship's spine, flooding the hull, pulling it under in seconds. Your consciousness drifts, imagines being on that ship, the moment of realization, and then the peaceful surrender as water closes over everything. cold, and final, and strangely calm. Scientists have studied rogue waves, used computer models and laboratory tanks to simulate their formation, trying to understand how they arise, and the research suggests they are real, not sailors' tales or exaggerations, but actual phenomena that can occur when waves traveling in different directions intersect, when wind and current align in particular ways, creating constructive interference, waves adding together, building higher, higher, until they tower over the surface like liquid cliffs, and a ship caught between two peaks, suspended with nothing beneath it, can break in half, can snap like a twig, leaving only debris that quickly sinks. Your body feels that suspension, that moment of weightlessness before the fall, and then sinks peacefully into deeper rest. British researchers specifically studied the Bermuda Triangle, looking for evidence of rogue waves. And they concluded such waves could indeed form in these waters, could explain some disappearances. But they found no definitive proof, no direct evidence linking rogue waves to specific incidents, only the theoretical possibility, only the knowledge that such waves exist, somewhere, sometimes, appearing and vanishing like ghosts. Your thoughts drift like those waves, rising and falling, never quite grasping the full truth. And that's okay. That's perfectly fine. As you sink deeper into comfortable uncertainty, beneath the surface, stored in sediments and rock, lies another potential explanation, one that sounds almost fantastical, but is rooted in geological fact. Methane hydrates, frozen deposits of methane gas trapped in ice-like structures, found on continental margins around the world, including here, beneath these waters. Your mind drifts downward again, through the water column, to the seafloor, and below, into sediments where pressure and cold create strange chemical cages, trapping gas molecules in crystalline prisons. The theory suggests that these deposits, under certain conditions, could become unstable, could release their trapped gas suddenly, catastrophically. Imagine vast bubbles of methane erupting from the seafloor, rising through the water, breaking the surface in a churning foam, and a ship floating above such an eruption would suddenly lose buoyancy, the water beneath it becoming more gas than liquid, unable to support the vessel's weight, and the ship would sink, not slowly, not with time for distress calls, but instantly, plummeting through the foam to the bottom. Your body knows this feeling, this sudden giving way, as your muscles release all tension, all resistance, and you sink into the mattress, into sleep, into peaceful darkness. It is a compelling theory, almost poetic in its strangeness. Ocean flatulence. Some have called it the sea burping up ancient gas. But when scientists from the United States Geological Survey examined core samples from the Bermuda Triangle region, they found no evidence of large methane releases in the past 15,000 years, no signs of recent eruptions. The theory remains possible, plausible, but unproven, like so much else about these waters. Your mind releases the need for proof, drifts on possibility, on maybe, on the beautiful uncertainty of might be. And then there is magnetism, that invisible force that guides compass needles, that shapes the behavior of iron and steel, that flows from Earth's core in complex patterns we are still learning to map. The Bermuda Triangle has been called a place of magnetic anomaly, where compasses behave strangely, where instruments malfunction, where the ordinary rules seem suspended. Your consciousness drifts through these invisible fields, feeling their pull, their subtle influence, like falling through something that isn't quite there. The Earth has two norths: true north, the geographic North Pole, the point where all longitude lines converge, and magnetic north, the place in the Arctic where Earth's magnetic field points straight down, where compass needles naturally align, and these two norths do not coincide. The difference between them is called magnetic declination or variation, and it changes depending on where you are on Earth's surface. Navigators must account for this difference, must adjust their compass readings, must know the local variation, or they will drift off course. Your thoughts drift with this explanation, following lines of force that curve and bend across the globe. And here's where the Bermuda Triangle becomes interesting, becomes unusual, for there is a line on Earth called the agonic line, where true north and magnetic north align, where the variation is zero, where a compass points to both norths simultaneously, and this line moves, shifts over time as Earth's magnetic field changes. And in the early 20th century, that line passed directly through the Bermuda Triangle. Your mind pictures Christopher Columbus, checking his compass on September 17th, 1492, finding it showed northwest, then checking again at dawn and finding it correct. Perhaps he sailed across that line. Perhaps his ship moved from a region of western declination to eastern declination, or vice versa, and the change confused his crew, frightened them with its seeming impossibility. Your breathing slows, matching the slow drift of magnetic fields across centuries, across continents. But by the 21st century, the agonic line had moved, no longer passed through the triangle, and modern compasses in the region show normal declination, predictable variation, nothing unusual. So magnetic anomalies cannot explain modern disappearances, cannot account for recent incidents, and yet the legend persists, the idea persists, that something about these waters affects instruments, affects navigation. Your eyelids flutter, so heavy now. As you release these thoughts, let them drift away like compass needles, spinning, searching for north, finding only peaceful confusion. The ocean floor itself in this region tells a story of fire and upheaval. Bermuda, that pink paradise that forms the northern point of the triangle, is volcanic in origin, born from eruptions 33 million years ago, when magma forced its way through the seafloor, building a mountain that eventually broke the surface, creating islands in the middle of the ocean. Your mind drifts back through time, watching molten rock flow, cool, solidify, watching land emerge from water like a whale breaching. But Bermuda is unusual. Geologically speaking, it should not exist, not anymore. Volcanic island chains typically form over hotspots, over mantle plumes, fixed points where magma rises from deep within the earth. And as tectonic plates move over these hotspots, they create chains of islands, each one marking where the plume was at a different time, like breadcrumbs showing the plate's journey. Hawaii is the classic example, A perfect chain of islands showing the Pacific Plate's movement over millions of years. Your consciousness drifts along that chain, island to island, across vast oceanic distances. But Bermuda has no such chain, no sister islands showing the North American Plate's movement. It stands alone, and more mysteriously, there is no active hotspot, no mantle plume rising beneath it, nothing that should be holding the seafloor elevated, creating the swell that keeps Bermuda above water. And yet there it sits, pink sand beaches and crystal water, defying the geology that says it should have sunk beneath the waves millions of years ago. Your body sinks, but unlike Bermuda, you embrace that sinking. Welcome it as your muscles go completely soft. Recent seismic studies conducted in 2025 may have found an answer deep beneath Bermuda. Beneath the ocean floor, there appears to be a thick layer of material underplating from that ancient volcanic episode. Dense rock that supports the seafloor swell, keeps the islands above water, a remnant of fire from 30 million years past, still influencing the present, still holding up these islands against the ocean's desire to reclaim them. Your mind pictures this: underground mountains, inverted peaks beneath the seafloor, supporting the visible world above, just as your bones support your flesh. But now those bones feel soft, liquid, as you sink deeper into rest. The islands themselves, 181 of them comprising the Bermuda archipelago, are outcroppings of this ancient volcanic activity, covered now in limestone, in coral, in the accumulated remains of countless organisms that lived and died in warm, shallow water over millions of years. Building reefs, building land one calcium skeleton at a time, your thoughts slow, matching that geological pace, where change is measured in eons, where a human lifetime is less than a heartbeat, less than a breath. And around these islands, the water is treacherous, was treacherous even before modern shipping. Sharp reefs lurk just beneath the surface, hidden by clear water, by deceptive calm. A ship approaching too close could tear its hull open, could flood and sink before help arrived, before anyone even knew disaster had struck. Countless vessels met their end on these reefs over the centuries. Wooden ships splintered, modern vessels holed below the waterline, the ocean claiming them, pulling them down to join the wreckage of all the others who miscalculated, who trusted their charts, who thought they knew where they were. Your body knows this surrender, this giving into forces stronger than will, as you let go. Let yourself sink, trusting the darkness to hold you. The Bahamas, too, those scattered islands forming much of the triangle's western and southern border, are navigational challenges. Hundreds of islands, thousands of cays and rocks, many of them looking similar, especially from the air, especially to a disoriented pilot with failing instruments. Lieutenant Taylor mistook them for the Florida Keys, flew the wrong direction trying to reach home, and condemned himself and his men to the ocean's embrace. Your mind empathizes, understands how easy it is to become confused, to make mistakes, especially when tired, when stressed, when instruments fail and nothing looks familiar. Your thoughts become confused too, scattered, and that's fine. That's the path to sleep, to rest, to peaceful oblivion. Human error, That mundane explanation accounts for so many incidents: pilots who miscalculated fuel, captains who ignored weather warnings, navigators who made simple mistakes that compounded into tragedy. The ocean is unforgiving of error, punishes mistakes with cold finality. And in the days before GPS, before satellite navigation, before radio beacons and electronic charts, navigation was an art as much as a science, requiring skill, requiring judgment, requiring clear thinking under stress. And sometimes people failed, made poor choices, and paid the ultimate price. Your own judgment fades now, becomes soft, unimportant, as you drift beyond the need to make decisions, beyond the burden of thought, just floating, peaceful, calm. The weather patterns of this region are complex, influenced by the Gulf Stream, by the trade winds, by the temperature gradients between land and sea, between warm water and cold. Storms can develop with remarkable speed, a phenomenon called explosive cyclogenesis, when atmospheric pressure drops rapidly, when a low-pressure system intensifies, creating winds of hurricane force within hours. Such storms have sunk ships throughout history, modern ships with radar and satellite weather information, let alone the wooden vessels of earlier centuries. Your breathing matches the pressure dropping, deeper, slower, as if your body itself is becoming a low-pressure system, drawing you down into rest. And yet, despite all these rational explanations, despite the science of waves and storms and magnetic fields, despite the statistics showing that the Bermuda Triangle is no more dangerous than any other heavily traveled part of the ocean, the mystery persists, the feeling persists, that something about these waters is different, special, touched by forces beyond our understanding. Your mind knows this feeling, this sense that some mysteries resist explanation, resist reduction to simple cause and effect. Your eyelids close completely now, shutting out the need to see, to analyze, to understand, just feeling the story wash over you like warm water. Lloyd's of London, the famous insurance market, was asked to investigate in the 1970s, asked if ships were more likely to sink in the Bermuda Triangle, asked if the region deserved its fearsome reputation, and their conclusion was clear, definitive. No, ships did not sink more frequently in these waters. No unusual pattern of losses. No reason to charge higher insurance rates for vessels passing through. The statistics were unambiguous. The triangle was no more dangerous than any comparable stretch of ocean. Your body feels safe, protected, as you sink deeper into the embrace of truth, or what passes for truth in a world of statistics and probability. The United States Coast Guard echoes this conclusion, states officially that they recognize no special hazards in the Bermuda Triangle, that the area experiences no mysterious disappearances beyond what would be expected in any heavily trafficked region, that natural phenomena, human error, and mechanical failure account for all incidents, that there is no need to invoke supernatural explanations, no need for aliens or Atlantis or dimensional portals. Your mind hears these official assurances, feels them settle over consciousness like a blanket, comfortable, logical, rational, and yet, whispers a voice in the back of your mind. If everything is so explainable, so ordinary, why can we not find the Cyclops? Why can we not locate Flight 19? with all our modern technology, our sonar and submersibles and satellite imaging, why do some vessels leave no trace, no debris field, no oil slick, no bodies floating in life preservers, just absence? Just the empty ocean and the empty sky and the terrible silence of unanswered radio calls. Your thoughts drift through this question, not seeking answers, just wondering, peacefully wondering as your consciousness grows dim. A 2013 study examined the world's most dangerous waters for shipping, compiled data from maritime incidents across the globe, created a ranking of risk, and the Bermuda Triangle did not appear in the top 10 nor the top 20. The most dangerous waters lie elsewhere in the South China Sea, off the coast of East Africa where pirates operate, in the stormy passages near Antarctica. The statistics speak clearly, definitively, and yet your breathing slows further, matching the slow rhythm of doubt, of maybe, of what if. Because statistics cannot capture everything, cannot account for the feeling that sailors report, that sense of unease when crossing these waters, that prickle at the back of the neck, that whisper in the mind suggesting something is watching, waiting, beneath the waves. Statistics cannot measure dread, cannot quantify the weight of legend, cannot explain why some people who travel through the triangle return with stories, with experiences, with memories that refuse to fit into neat categories. Your mind drifts through these unmeasurable quantities, through feeling rather than fact, through intuition rather than evidence. Some have reported electronic fogs, strange mists that seem to behave impossibly, that cling to aircraft, that disorient pilots and affect instruments. Bruce Jernan, flying his plane in 1970, claimed to experience such a fog, described a tunnel forming in the clouds, a vortex that drew him in, and when he emerged, he had traveled farther than should have been possible in the elapsed time, as if time itself had compressed, as if space had folded. A story that sounds like science fiction, like fantasy, and yet he tells it still, believing, remembering, insisting. Your thoughts become foggy too, unclear, drifting between memory and dream, between sleep and waking, the boundary dissolving like mist in sunshine. These stories, these accounts of strange experiences, they cannot be proven, but neither can they be disproven. They exist in that liminal space between verified fact and dismissed fantasy. And perhaps that is where the Bermuda Triangle truly lives, not in any physical location, not in the actual waters between Florida and Bermuda and Puerto Rico, but in that space in human consciousness where we store our mysteries, our unanswered questions, our need for wonder in an increasingly explained world. Your consciousness occupies that same liminal space now, between waking and sleeping, between thought and dream, suspended, floating, peaceful. The ocean covers 70% of Earth's surface, holds 97% of Earth's water, and we have explored perhaps 5% of it, perhaps less. The rest remains mysterious, unknown, potentially full of wonders we cannot yet imagine, creatures we have never seen, phenomena we have never witnessed. The deep ocean is Earth's last frontier, more unknown to us than the surface of Mars, than the far side of the moon. And the Bermuda Triangle, whether special or ordinary, whether cursed or simply mathematical, is part of that great unknown, part of that mystery we will perhaps never fully solve. Your body accepts this, releases the need to know everything, drifts into comfortable ignorance, into peaceful not knowing. Your breathing has found its rhythm now, slow, deep, matching the eternal pulse of the ocean. And as you drift deeper into rest, deeper into the story, we turn our attention to the tales that sailors tell, to the folklore that grows like coral around kernels of truth, to the spiritual traditions that see in these waters something beyond what instruments can measure. Your eyelids remain closed, heavy, peaceful, as we explore the invisible currents of belief, of legend, of meaning we impose upon the indifferent sea. Long before European ships crossed these waters, before Columbus sailed westward seeking Asia, indigenous peoples of the Caribbean knew these islands, these currents, these storms, the Taino people, the Lucayan, the Arawak. They navigated these waters in canoes carved from single trees. They fished these reefs. They understood the ocean's moods in ways that took generations to learn, and they had their own stories, their own explanations for the mysteries of the sea. Your mind drifts back through centuries, through millennia, to times when all knowledge was oral, when stories carried truth from generation to generation. The indigenous peoples spoke of angry spirits in certain waters, places where the ocean grew restless, where storms gathered with particular fury, where it was unwise to venture without proper respect, without offerings, without the right prayers. They understood that the natural world was alive, conscious, demanding relationship rather than dominion. Your body understands this, feels the aliveness of the world even as you sink towards sleep, feels connected to forces larger than yourself, ancient, patient, eternal. When Spanish explorers arrived, conquering these islands, enslaving and destroying the indigenous peoples, they encountered these beliefs, these warnings about cursed waters, and some dismissed them as superstition. But others, those who spent years at sea, who learned to read the ocean's subtle signs, they wondered. They respected the old knowledge even if they didn't fully believe. Your breathing slows, respecting the wisdom of those who came before, those whose knowledge has been lost, scattered like ash on the wind. The Sargasso Sea in particular, that strange realm of floating seaweed and becalmed waters, carried a reputation long before it was associated with the Bermuda Triangle. Sailors called it the doldrums, the horse latitudes, regions where wind died and ships sat motionless for days, for weeks, water supplies running low, food spoiling in the tropical heat, crew growing desperate. Some ships never escaped, crews dying of thirst while surrounded by infinite water, salt water that would kill them faster than no water at all. Your throat feels the phantom dryness, but then releases it, your body comfortable, hydrated, safe, as you sink deeper into imagined history. In the days of sail, when ships depended entirely on wind, the horse latitudes earned their grim name from a practice too horrible to dwell upon. Horses being transported across the Atlantic, valuable cargo, but heavy. And when a ship sat becalmed, when fresh water grew scarce, difficult decisions had to be made. The horses would be thrown overboard, killed to conserve water for the crew, and their bodies would float among the sargassum, decomposing slowly in the warm water, attracting sharks that circled endlessly, waiting, patient as death. Your mind touches this horror, then moves past it, drifting toward gentler thoughts, toward sleep, where no such choices need be made. Ghost ships became part of the lore, vessels found floating empty, sails set, course steady, but no crew aboard, no sign of struggle, no indication of where the sailors had gone, simply absence. The Mary Celeste is the most famous, found drifting in 1872, the captain's log ending mid-sentence. Breakfast still on the table, no boats missing except the ship's small craft, as if the crew had calmly abandoned ship for no reason, never to be seen again. Your consciousness drifts like those empty ships, present but not present, aware but not aware, floating between states of being. Some ghost ships were found in the Sargasso Sea, trapped in the seaweed, their timbers rotting, sails hanging in tatters, silent monuments to journeys that ended without explanation. Sailors reported seeing these derelicts, dark shapes emerging from the golden-brown mats of vegetation, and at night, when shadows played across weathered wood, imagination could populate those empty decks with spectral crews, with the ghosts of men who died of thirst or madness, or something worse, something the ocean will never tell. Your imagination drifts through these ghost ships, seeing what is not there, feeling presences in emptiness, the way we do in the moment before sleep, when shadows become shapes and shapes become stories. The legends grew, elaborated, transformed with each retelling. Sea monsters entered the mythology, the kraken, that giant squid of Norse legend, supposedly large enough to drag entire ships beneath the waves, tentacles thick as masts wrapping around hulls, pulling vessels down to crushing depths. Giant squids do exist. We know this now. Specimens have been found, photographed, measured, reaching lengths of 40 feet or more, but nothing large enough to threaten a ship, nothing matching the monster of legend. And yet, the deep ocean likely holds larger specimens, creatures that have never surfaced, never been documented. Your mind pictures those tentacles, those alien eyes, and feels a shiver of primal fear, then releases it, sinking past fear into simple wonder. Sirens, too, those mythological women who lured sailors to their doom with beautiful singing, found their way into Bermuda Triangle lore. Some claim to hear strange sounds over the water, melodies that had no source, voices calling from empty air, beckoning, promising, leading ships toward rocks, toward reefs, toward destruction. Your ears strain, listening for those impossible songs, hearing only the rhythm of your own breathing, the soft whisper of air moving in and out, a lullaby older than language, older than consciousness itself. In the 20th century, as belief in traditional monsters waned, new explanations emerged, born of science fiction and Cold War paranoia. UFOs and alien abduction became popular theories. Extraterrestrials studying our planet, taking samples, harvesting humans for unknown purposes. The Bermuda Triangle a hunting ground, a collection point, where alien craft descended from the stars to gather specimens. Your mind drifts upward, imagining lights in the sky, craft moving with impossible speed, and then sinks again, back toward Earth, toward sleep, toward the comfortable known. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, that 1977 film by Steven Spielberg, featured Flight 19 explicitly, showing the missing Avengers discovered in the Sonoran Desert, pristine, full fuel tanks. And at the film's end, the missing pilots returning from an alien mothership, unaged, unchanged, as if time had stopped for them, a beautiful fantasy, a hopeful explanation that turns tragedy into wonder, that brings the missing home. Your heart wants this, wants the lost to return, wants death to be an illusion, and in dreams, in sleep, perhaps it is. Perhaps everyone we've lost waits for us in that twilight country where consciousness goes when the body rests. Charles Berlitz, in his best-selling book, suggested that the lost city of Atlantis might lie beneath the Triangle's waters, that ancient technology from that legendary civilization might still function, might interfere with modern instruments, might pull ships and planes into another dimension. He pointed to the Bimini Road, a rock formation off the coast of Bimini in the Bahamas. Long straight stones that some claim look artificial, look like a paved road leading into the ocean depths. Your mind follows that road, downward, into darkness, into sleep, wondering what lies at its end. Psychic Edgar Cayce, sometimes called the sleeping prophet because he made his predictions while in trance, claimed that Atlantis would rise again, that evidence of it would be found in 1968, and in 1968, the Bimini Road was discovered, or rather noticed, documented, claimed as evidence of Cayce's vision. Believers saw in those stones proof of ancient civilization, of Atlantis, of mysteries deeper than we imagine. Your own consciousness enters a trance state, drifting, prophetic, touching truths that scatter when you try to grasp them. But geologists examined the Bimini Road, studied its formation, its composition, and concluded it is natural, beach rock, limestone formed through natural processes, cracked and eroded in patterns that happen to look geometric, happen to resemble human construction. The brain seeks patterns, sees faces in clouds, roads in random rocks, meaning in chaos. Your thoughts become chaotic, random, pattern and patternlessness blending, as the rational mind releases its grip, allows dream logic to take over. Still, even knowing the geological explanation, even accepting the natural origin, something about the Bimini Road captivates the imagination, perhaps because we want Atlantis to be real, want there to be lost wisdom. Ancient knowledge buried beneath the waves, perhaps because the ocean does hide ruins, does cover cities and harbors that sank when sea levels rose or land subsided. And if some ruins lie beneath the water, why not Atlantis? Why not that perfect civilization described by Plato, destroyed in a single day and night of misfortune? Your breathing deepens, as if preparing to dive, to sink beneath the surface, to explore drowned cities in the country of sleep. Time warps became another popular explanation. Dimensional portals, places where the fabric of reality grows thin, where ships and planes might slip through into parallel universes, into other times. Bruce Gernon's electronic fog, his claim of traveling impossible distances in too short time, fits this theory, suggests that space itself behaves strangely in the triangle. that Einstein's curved spacetime might have kinks, wrinkles, shortcuts between distant points, your mind wraps around this concept, time and space bending, and finds it oddly comforting. The idea that the missing might not be dead, might be alive elsewhere, elsewhere lost but not destroyed. Scientists dismiss such theories, point out that we have no evidence of dimensional portals, no reason to think they exist, no framework in physics that would allow them, and yet quantum mechanics suggests that reality is stranger than we imagine, that particles can be in two places at once, can communicate across vast distances instantaneously, can tunnel through barriers they shouldn't be able to penetrate. If the very small behaves so strangely, might the very large have its own impossibilities? Your thoughts tunnel through barriers of logic, finding themselves in strange places, dreamscapes where different rules apply. Some spiritual traditions see the Bermuda Triangle as a vortex, an energy center on Earth's subtle body, similar to chakras in the human energy system, places where spiritual energy flows with particular intensity, where the veil between worlds grows thin, where sensitive individuals might perceive things others cannot, might experience phenomena that resist material explanation. Your body has such centers, places where energy pools and circulates, and as you relax, those energies flow more freely, spiraling, opening, connecting you to something larger than yourself. The earth has many such places according to various traditions. Sacred sites, power spots, places where ancient peoples built temples, where pilgrims journey seeking healing or enlightenment, or connection to the divine. Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, Mount Kailash, Sedona, and perhaps the Bermuda Triangle. Not a place of death, but of transformation. Not a grave, but a gateway. Your consciousness approaches such a gateway now. The threshold between waking and sleeping, between known and unknown, and hesitates, then crosses, drifting through. In some mystical traditions, water itself is seen as a portal, a boundary between worlds. The ancient Greeks poured libations into water to reach the underworld. Baptism symbolizes death and rebirth. Drowning victims sometimes report profound spiritual experiences before being revived, seeing lights, meeting deceased loved ones, experiencing peace beyond understanding. The ocean as the ultimate water, the ultimate portal, carrying souls away, or carrying them towards something we cannot name. Your thoughts grow liquid, flowing, losing their solid borders, merging with the greater consciousness that underlies all things. Indigenous traditions around the world speak of water spirits, of deities that dwell in lakes and rivers and oceans, that must be respected, honored, appeased. The Yoruba Orisha Yemaya, mother of the ocean, both nurturing and terrible, giving life and taking it. The Japanese kami of water, the Celtic myths of Selkies and Meros, all pointing to the same truth, that water is alive, aware, possessed of its own agency. Your body is mostly water, and as you relax, as boundaries dissolve, you feel your kinship with ocean, with rain, with the slow rivers of blood moving through your veins. Perhaps the truth of the Bermuda Triangle lies not in any single explanation, but in the intersection of many. The region is geologically active, prone to storms, difficult to navigate. Yes, and also, it occupies a special place in human consciousness, a place where we project our fears and desires, where we store our mysteries, where we acknowledge the limits of our knowledge and control. Your mind understands this multiplicity, holds many truths at once, contradictions dissolving in the soft light of approaching sleep. The ocean has always been a threshold for humanity, the edge of the known world. Beyond it lay monsters, or gods, or nothing, or everything. Sailors who crossed it were heroes, or fools, or a bit of both. They left the safety of land, of solid ground, of fixed reference points, and trusted themselves to an element that could kill them in seconds, drown them, freeze them, sweep them away without trace. Your body releases its trust to something larger now, to sleep, to the unknown territory of dreams, where anything might happen, where you are safe even in danger, protected even when lost. In medieval times, maps marked unknown regions with the words, "Here be dragons," a warning, but also an invitation, a promise of wonders and terrors beyond the charted world. The Bermuda Triangle is our modern "Here be dragons," a place on the map, in the ocean, but more importantly, in our imagination, where the rationale gives way to the numinous, where statistics fail to explain the feeling, the sense, the knowing that something about these waters is different. Your rational mind has given way now, has surrendered to the older brain, the dreaming brain, where symbols replace logic and feeling, trumps fact. And perhaps that is enough. Perhaps we don't need to solve every mystery. Perhaps some enigmas are more valuable unsolved, keeping alive our capacity for wonder, our humility in the face of forces we cannot control, our connection to the ancient human experience of standing on a shore, looking out at infinite water, and feeling small, feeling mortal, feeling the terrible beauty of a world that predates us and will outlast us. Your smallness is not frightening now. It is comforting. The relief of being just one small consciousness in an ocean of consciousness, just one wave in infinite water. Ships still cross the Bermuda Triangle daily. Aircraft fly over it constantly. Tens of thousands of vessels pass through every year, and the vast majority arrive safely at their destinations. The disappearances are rare, statistically insignificant, and yet each one is infinite for the people who don't return, for the families waiting on distant shores. For them, statistics mean nothing. The triangle swallowed their loved ones, and no amount of rational explanation can fill that absence. Your heart feels this, the weight of loss, then releases it, breathing out sorrow, breathing in peace, the cycle of holding and letting go. There have been survivors, people who encountered something strange in the triangle and lived to tell of it. They report compass malfunctions, yes, and also feelings, sensations, the sense of being watched, of time passing strangely, of reality becoming somehow unstable. Their stories cannot be verified, but neither can they be easily dismissed. They speak with the certainty of lived experience, however impossible that experience might seem. Your own experience right now, this liminal state between sleep and waking, would be hard to explain to someone who has never felt it. Hard to put into words, this floating, this dissolution of boundaries, this peaceful surrender to unconsciousness. Some psychologists suggest that the Bermuda Triangle persists in imagination because humans need mysteries, need places where the explained gives way to the unexplained, where science admits its limitations. In a world increasingly mapped and measured and understood, we hunger for the unknown, for frontiers, for edges where we might still fall off into wonder. Your consciousness approaches such an edge now, the boundary of sleep, and does not fear falling, welcomes it, leans into it, knowing that beyond this edge lies rest, lies dreams, lies the regeneration your body needs. The triangle has inspired countless books, films, documentaries, articles, television specials, all exploring the mystery from different angles, some searching for rational answers, some celebrating the unexplained, some mixing fact and fiction until they become indistinguishable. The line between documentary and entertainment blurs, as does the line between information and mythology, as does the line between your waking thoughts and sleeping dreams. Everything blurring, softening, your mind becoming a gentle fog where nothing is quite clear, quite solid, and that is perfect. That is exactly right. In art and literature, the Bermuda Triangle serves as metaphor, a symbol of the mysterious, the dangerous, the alluring unknown. It appears in songs, in paintings, in poems that use its name as shorthand for mystery, for disappearance, for the void that swallows things and people and returning nothing. Your thoughts are being swallowed now, taken down into the darkness beneath consciousness, where memories and experiences are processed, transformed, integrated, where the day's events are filed away and tomorrow's wisdom is prepared. And tourism? There is tourism. People visit Bermuda specifically because of the triangle, stand at designated spots, take photographs proving they entered this legendary region and survived. Museums offer exhibits. Boat tours promise to explore the mystery. The triangle has become commercial, commodified, and yet this doesn't entirely diminish it, doesn't drain away all the wonder, because standing on those pink beaches, looking out at that blue water, knowing that somewhere beneath those waves lie ships and planes and people who never came home, that knowledge touches something real, something that merchandising cannot cheapen. Your mind stands on such a beach now, feeling sand beneath imaginary feet, wind in imaginary hair, the sun warm on skin that grows warmer, heavier, as you sink deeper into the comfort of your bed. The government museums in Bermuda, in Fort Lauderdale, carefully preserve the history, the facts, the documented incidents. They honor the lost without sensationalizing their loss. Flight 19 is remembered there, the Cyclops, other vessels and aircraft, names and dates and circumstances, all recorded with care, with respect, ensuring that these people remain more than statistics, more than footnotes, real individuals who lived and laughed and loved, and then one day didn't come home. Your breathing deepens, honoring them, remembering them, then releasing them to history, to mystery, to whatever realm the vanished occupy. Some families never got closure, never recovered bodies to bury, never learned exactly what happened to their loved ones. They live with ambiguity, with a not knowing, and perhaps that is the triangle's cruelest gift, not the taking, but the lack of explanation, the absence of ending. Stories without final chapters, questions without answers. Your mind understands this, has its own unanswered questions, its own mysteries. And as you sink toward sleep, you learn to hold them gently, to live with not knowing, to find peace despite uncertainty. Your body has surrendered now, completely, utterly, to the embrace of rest, muscles like water, bones like sand, breath flowing in and out with the rhythm of waves on a shore that exists only in your mind. And as we drift deeper into this story, deeper into the mystery, we explore more closely the incidents that built the legend, the disappearances that refuse to be forgotten, your eyelids sealed shut, heavy as stone, peaceful as sleep itself, as we journey through time, through tragedy, through the accumulation of loss that became mythology. Let us return to the USS Cyclops, that massive collier that vanished in March of 1918, and examine more closely what we know, what we don't know, what we can never know. The ship was commanded by Lieutenant Commander George W. Worley, a German-born officer with a reputation for eccentricity. He walked the deck in his underwear and a derby hat, refused to sleep in his cabin, preferred the bridge, always watching, always vigilant. Your mind pictures this strange figure, this man who kept his ship safe through countless voyages, until the last one, the one from which there was no return. The Cyclops had departed from Rio de Janeiro, stopped in Bahia, then Barbados, loading manganese ore at each port, filling her holds with dense metal, heavy cargo that sat low in the ship, affecting her balance, her buoyancy. Some historians suggest she was overloaded, carrying more weight than was safe, that perhaps this doomed her, caused structural failure, a cracked keel, a broken spine, the ship breaking apart and sinking so quickly there was no time for distress signals. Your body knows this heaviness, this overloading, as your limbs grow weighted, impossible to move, sinking into the mattress as the Cyclops sank into the sea. But there were concerns even before she sailed. One of the ship's engines had failed, was offline, inoperable. The Cyclops limped out of Barbados on March 4th, with only half her propulsion, moving more slowly than usual, more vulnerable to weather, to mechanical problems, to whatever fate awaited her in the empty ocean. Your heartbeat slows, matching that slow, struggling progress. One engine pushing against infinite resistance, until it, too, falls silent, still, peaceful. The weather between Barbados and Baltimore should have been clear. No major storms were reported, no hurricanes, no violent fronts that might have overwhelmed the ship. And yet, the ocean keeps its secrets. Localized squalls can develop suddenly. Rogue waves can appear without warning from relatively calm seas. Or perhaps the overloaded ship, struggling on one engine, simply developed a critical failure, took on water faster than pumps could handle, and slipped beneath the surface while her crew scrambled in darkness and terror. Your breath catches, imagining that moment, then releases, your body safe, warm, secure, as you drift past terror into peaceful acceptance. Some conspiracy theories emerged, suggestions that the ship had been sabotaged, that German agents had planted bombs, that Commander Worley himself, German-born, might have been a spy who deliberately scuttled his own ship. But no evidence supported these claims. No wreckage was ever found that might show explosive damage. No testimony from survivors because there were no survivors. only speculation, only theories trying to fill the void left by absence. Your thoughts drift through these theories like smoke, insubstantial, dissolving, leaving only the essential mystery. The ship sailed away and never arrived. 306 people ceased to exist. Your consciousness approaches such cessation, the temporary death of sleep, and welcomes it. More mysterious still, the disappearances of her sister ships, the Proteus and Nereus, both vanishing during World War II, decades after the Cyclops, in the same general region, also without distress calls, also without wreckage or survivors. 3 identical ships meeting identical fates. What are the odds? What explanation could account for such repetition? Your rational mind struggles with this, then gives up, surrenders to mystery, to the impossible coincidence that might not be coincidence at all, might be something else, something the ocean knows but will not tell. Perhaps there is something about that class of ship, some design flaw that made them vulnerable, prone to sudden catastrophic failure under certain conditions, or perhaps, and this is where reason fails and wonder begins, perhaps something about these waters called to them specifically, recognized them, took them, one by one, across the years, patient as tides. Your breathing matches that patience, that slowness. In no hurry, nowhere to go, just being, just existing, just drifting toward the edge of consciousness. We know more about Flight 19, have more documentation, more recorded communication, more pieces of the puzzle, and yet the picture remains incomplete, frustratingly unclear, like a dream half remembered upon waking. Lieutenant Taylor, the flight leader, was an experienced pilot, yes, but he was also new to the Florida area, had only recently transferred from NAS Miami, was unfamiliar with the Bahamas, with the particular geography below him. Your mind empathizes, knows what it is to be lost in unfamiliar territory, especially when tired, when stressed, when instruments fail and everything looks wrong. The flight had taken off at 2:10 in the afternoon, completed their bombing practice successfully at the Hen and Chickens Shoals, and turned north. This is when things began to unravel, when Taylor's compasses both failed, an unusual occurrence. Compasses are generally reliable. Rarely do both primary and backup fail simultaneously, but it happens. Mechanical devices fail, especially in aircraft subject to vibration, to magnetic interference from the plane's own metal structure. Your thoughts vibrate, shake, lose their stability, words becoming harder to grasp, meanings becoming slippery. At 3:45, Captain Edward Powers, one of the student pilots, was heard saying, "I don't know where we are. We must have got lost after that last turn." Uncertainty spreading through the formation like fog. Each pilot looking to the others for answers, finding only shared confusion, and Taylor trying to maintain command, making decisions based on false assumptions, believing he was over the Gulf of Mexico when he was actually over the Atlantic, believing the islands below were the Keys when they were the Bahamas, each wrong decision carrying them farther from safety. Your own decision-making fails now, dissolves. You cannot choose to stay awake, cannot choose your thoughts. They choose themselves. Random, dreamlike, beyond control. Radio operators at Fort Lauderdale, at other stations, picked up the fragmentary transmissions, tried to help, tried to guide the lost flight home, but communication was difficult, the signals weak, distorted, fading, and Taylor seemed unable or unwilling to switch to the emergency frequency, seemed locked into his certainty, his mistaken understanding of where he was. Conviction can be deadly, especially when it is wrong. Your own convictions dissolve. You become uncertain, gloriously uncertain, not knowing even where your body ends and the bed begins, boundaries dissolving like salt in water. At 4:45, Taylor's transmission suggested panic beginning to set in. Both my compasses are out, and I'm trying to find Fort Lauderdale. I'm over land, but it's broken. I'm sure I'm in the Keys, but I don't know how far down. But he wasn't in the Keys, was over the Bahamas, or already past them, over open Atlantic. And every minute spent flying the wrong direction was a minute of fuel burned, bringing them closer to the moment when their engines would sputter, die, when they would have to ditch in darkening water. Your thoughts sputter, slow, the fuel of wakefulness nearly exhausted. By 5:15, with the sun low on the horizon, painting the ocean gold and pink, the plane's fuel gauges must have been showing red, showing nearly empty, and one of the instructors suggested they turn west, back toward Florida, toward safety. But Taylor overruled him, convinced that west would take them deeper into the Gulf, would lead them away from land. His certainty becoming their death sentence. Your body turns inward, away from the external world, toward the interior landscape of sleep, where different rules apply, where being lost is just part of the adventure. At 6:20, with darkness falling like a curtain, Taylor was heard giving an order, a final instruction to his men. All aircraft would ditch together, stay together, giving themselves the best chance of rescue, of survival through the night, until ships and planes could find them in the morning. A reasonable decision, perhaps their only option, and the student pilots, trusting their instructor, followed him down toward the dark water. Your consciousness follows them down through layers of awareness. Surface thoughts giving way to deeper currents, to the unconscious mind that processes, dreams, heals. The last transmission came at 7:04, then silence, just the empty hiss of radio static, the sound of absence, of ended transmission, of ceased existence. And when the sun rose the next morning, when the massive search began, they found nothing. No oil slicks, no debris, no life rafts, no bodies. The ocean had swallowed them completely, left no evidence, no trace, as if they had never been. Your breathing is barely perceptible now, shallow, quiet, the body conserving energy, preparing for the deep restoration of sleep. The search covered more than 300,000 square miles, one of the largest search operations in history. Ships and aircraft crisscrossing the waters where Flight 19 should have gone down, finding nothing. How is this possible? How can 5 large aircraft simply vanish, even if they sank quickly, even if they broke apart on impact? Something should float, something should remain. But the ocean kept everything, held it close, refused to give back even a single piece. Your mind tries to hold on to this mystery, but cannot, thoughts slipping away, falling into darkness, and the rescue plane, PBM Mariner Bureau. Number 5, 9225, adds another layer to the tragedy, takes the mystery deeper. The aircraft took off at 7:27, climbed into the evening sky, sent a routine position report, and then vanished, dropped off radar, ceased communication, gone, as completely as the planes it sought to rescue. 13 more lives, 13 more families waiting for men who would never come home. Your heart aches with this, feels the weight of accumulated loss, then releases it, breathing out pain, breathing in peace, the eternal exchange. The tanker crew reported seeing an explosion, seeing fire light the sky at 7:50, almost certainly the Mariner. Those planes were notorious for leaking fuel, were called flying gas tanks by their crews. One spark, one moment of ignition, and the plane would have exploded, would have disintegrated in midair, raining debris into the ocean, debris that sank, leaving perhaps an oil slick, a scatter of floating wreckage. But by the time search planes arrived hours later, in darkness, any evidence would have dispersed, sunk, vanished into the same void that took the others. Your thoughts disperse, scatter, sink into the void of unconsciousness. In the decades since, there have been searches, expeditions seeking Flight 19's wreckage, using sonar, using submersibles, exploring the ocean floor in the areas where the planes might have gone down. And they have found aircraft. Yes, found wrecks of World War II era planes, but none that can be definitively identified as Flight 19. None with the right markings, the right serial numbers, the right configuration. The ocean holds many secrets, many graves. Finding 5 specific aircraft in all that vastness is like searching for particular grains of sand on an infinite beach. Your search for wakefulness is similarly futile. You cannot find it now, cannot grasp it. It slips away like sand through fingers. Other disappearances are less well documented, less famous, but no less mysterious. The SS Cotopaxi, a cargo ship that vanished in 1925 while sailing from Charleston to Havana. She sent a distress signal reporting she was taking on water, was in trouble, and then silence. For decades she was listed among the Triangle's victims. Unexplained, mysterious, until 2020 when researchers discovered wreckage off the coast of Florida. Identified it as the Cotopaxi through painstaking detective work, solving one mystery, proving that not all disappearances are inexplicable, that sometimes the ocean does give back its dead, eventually, after nearly a century of keeping the secret. But this solved mystery only highlights the unsolved ones. If the Cotopaxi could remain hidden for 95 years, if it took advanced sonar and dedicated searching to locate her, how many other wrecks lie unfound, unidentified, holding the answers to mysteries we have long since stopped searching for? Your body has stopped searching, has surrendered, lies still and heavy, a wreck at the bottom of consciousness, peaceful in its dissolution. The Star Tiger, a British South American Airways aircraft, disappeared in January 1948 while flying from the Azores to Bermuda, carrying 25 passengers and 6 crew. The pilot reported his position, gave an estimated arrival time, said all was well, and then the plane simply failed to arrive. No distress call, no report of problems, just absence, the most intensive search to that date found nothing. And the official investigation concluded with unusual honesty. What happened in this case will never be known, and the fate of Star Tiger must remain an unsolved mystery. Your mind appreciates this honesty, this admission of unknowing, embraces it, rests in it. A year later, the Star Tiger's sister aircraft, the Star Ariel, vanished under nearly identical circumstances. Another British South American Airways plane, another flight to Bermuda, another routine position report followed by silence. Two identical aircraft, operated by the same airline, flying similar routes, both disappearing without explanation. The coincidence stretches probability, suggests pattern, suggests something beyond random mechanical failure. Or perhaps it suggests nothing. Perhaps coincidence is just coincidence. Perhaps we see patterns where none exist. Your thoughts pattern and unpattern, form and dissolve, like clouds assuming shapes, then losing them. The SS Marine Sulphur Queen, a tanker converted to carry molten sulfur, vanished in February 1963 with 39 crew aboard. Last heard from near Key West, bound for Norfolk. She sent no distress signal, no indication of trouble. Searches found scattered debris, a few life jackets, pieces of broken hull, but no survivors, no bodies, and no clear explanation. Later investigations suggested the ship was poorly maintained, prone to cracking, that the weight of molten sulfur might have stressed the hull beyond its capacity. A rational explanation. But still, why no distress call? Why no time to abandon ship? Some mysteries remain even when we think we've solved them. Your rational mind has abandoned ship, drifted away, leaving only the dreaming self. The Witchcraft, a luxury yacht, disappeared in December 1967. This disappearance is particularly strange because the ship was only 1 mile off Miami Beach, in sight of the glittering city, in one of the most trafficked areas of the Atlantic. The owner called the Coast Guard, reported hitting something, said he needed a tow but was in no danger. The Coast Guard sent a boat, arrived at the reported location 19 minutes later, and found nothing. No yacht, no debris, no people in the water, nothing. In 19 minutes, the vessel and its 2 passengers had completely vanished from 1 mile offshore. Your sense of time has vanished too. Minutes feel like hours, or hours like seconds. Or perhaps time has stopped completely. This eternal moment of drifting, these modern disappearances, after radar, after radio, after all our technological advances, are in some ways more disturbing than earlier losses. We expect the 19th century to be mysterious. Expect wooden sailing ships to vanish. But modern vessels with radio, with radar, with emergency beacons, they should be findable, should be recoverable. And when they're not, when the ocean takes them anyway, it reminds us of our limitations, reminds us that for all our technology, we are still small, still vulnerable, still subject to forces we cannot control. Your control has gone, released, given up to the greater forces of biology, of circadian rhythm, of sleep's inexorable pull. Larry Kusha, that researcher who in 1975 published The Bermuda Triangle Mystery Solved, did humanity a service. He went back to original sources, to Coast Guard reports, to weather records, to contemporary accounts, and discovered that many famous disappearances had been misrepresented, exaggerated, or occurred nowhere near the triangle. Some ships listed as mysteriously vanished had actually sunk in storms in the Pacific. Some disappearances that seemed inexplicable had clear explanations if you bothered to research them. Your dreaming mind knows this, knows that memory distorts, that stories change in retelling, that truth is slippery. Kusha showed that Vincent Gaddis and Charles Berlitz and other triangle popularizers had been careless at best, deliberately misleading at worst. They had cherry-picked incidents, ignored contradictory evidence, created patterns where none existed. And yet, knowing this, knowing that much of the triangle legend is manufactured, constructed from distortion and sensationalism, does not entirely dispel the mystery, because some disappearances remain genuinely unexplained. Some incidents resist easy categorization. Your thoughts resist categorization now, neither truly awake nor fully asleep, existing in the liminal space between. The question becomes not, is the Bermuda Triangle dangerous, but rather, why do we need it to be dangerous? Why do we want mystery, want to believe in cursed waters, want places where the rational world fails? Perhaps because rationality, while useful, while necessary, is also insufficient. It explains the how, but not the why. Tells us about mechanisms, but not about meaning. And humans need meaning the way we need air, need water, need sleep that is approaching you now like a tide, inevitable, welcome, necessary. The ocean will always be mysterious, will always hold secrets, will always take ships and planes and people. This is simply what oceans do, and the Bermuda Triangle, whether statistically unusual or not, whether cursed or ordinary, serves as a focal point for that mystery, a place we can point to, a name we can give to our fear and fascination, a story we can tell about the ocean's power, about human vulnerability, about the beautiful, terrible fact that some questions have no answers. Your questioning mind grows quiet, still, accepting that sleep too is a mystery, a daily dive into unconsciousness from which we trust we will return. The search continues. Researchers still seek Flight 19, still explore the Puerto Rico Trench, still wonder about the Cyclops, driven by the human need to know, to find, to solve. But perhaps the greater wisdom lies in accepting that some mysteries will remain, that the ocean is vaster than our tools, deeper than our reach, older than our understanding. Your breathing has found its deepest rhythm now, slow beyond slow, the body doing what it knows to do, sleeping, healing, being, and in the end, whether the Bermuda Triangle is real or imagined, dangerous or ordinary, cursed or simply tragic, matters less than what it represents in human consciousness. It is our collective acknowledgement that the world is larger than we are, that knowledge has limits, that control is an illusion, that the universe contains mysteries we may never solve. And far from being frightening, this can be comforting, can be freeing, can allow us to rest in not knowing, to sleep in uncertainty, to drift peacefully in the vast ocean of existence. Your body understands this, releases into it, trusts the mystery to hold you as water holds the swimmer who stops fighting, who lets go, who floats. Your body has become the ocean now, deep, still, vast beyond measurement. You're breathing the tide, your heartbeat, the distant rhythm of waves against some forgotten shore. And as we drift toward the conclusion of this journey, toward the final dissolution into sleep, we contemplate what the Bermuda Triangle means, what it teaches, what it offers to those who dare to look into its depths. Your eyelids sealed, your muscles liquid, your mind a soft fog settling over dark water. The triangle exists in multiple dimensions as physical geography. Yes, those waters between Florida and Bermuda and Puerto Rico, 500,000 square miles of Atlantic Ocean, subject to the same physics as any other ocean, the same storms, the same currents, the same depths. But it exists also in human imagination, in collective consciousness, in the stories we tell ourselves about the nature of reality, about what is known and what is unknowable. And perhaps this second triangle, the one we have constructed from fear and wonder and the need for mystery, is more real than the first, more powerful, more enduring. Your consciousness inhabits this liminal space between fact and fiction, between waking and dreaming, between knowing and unknowing. Consider that every ocean is a graveyard. Every sea has taken ships and lives across the centuries. The Mediterranean held secrets before there was writing to record them. The Pacific swallowed Polynesian voyagers whose names we will never know. The Indian Ocean claimed vessels carrying spices and silks on routes now forgotten. Thousands of ships, tens of thousands, millions of people who stepped aboard a vessel and never stepped off. Their bones scattered across the sea floor, their stories lost to time and tide. The Bermuda Triangle is unique not because it is more dangerous, but because we have chosen to make it symbolic, have invested it with meaning beyond its physical properties. Your mind invests this moment with meaning. This transition into sleep becoming symbolic of trust, of surrender, of faith that you will wake again. The ocean covers 71% of Earth's surface, holds 1.3 billion cubic kilometers of water, contains 97% of all the water on our planet, and we have explored less than 5% of it. Less. Some estimates suggest we have better maps of Mars than of our own ocean floor, better understanding of distant galaxies than of the deep sea. The majority of our own planet remains unknown to us, unmapped, unobserved, potentially full of wonders we cannot imagine. And this should humble us, should remind us that for all our technology, all our science, all our accumulated knowledge, we are still explorers in a vast unknown, still children at the edge of an infinite mystery. Your child self emerges now, the part that trusts without understanding, that accepts without questioning, that sleeps without fear. In the deepest parts of the ocean, in trenches like the one beneath the triangle, pressure exceeds 1,000 atmospheres, 8 tons per square inch, enough to crush submarines, to compress bone, to force water into molecular structures it cannot normally occupy. And yet life exists even there. Creatures adapted to darkness and pressure beyond what we thought possible. Fish with antifreeze proteins in their blood. Bacteria that feed on chemicals from hydrothermal vents. Entire ecosystems that have never seen sunlight, never will see sunlight, thriving in conditions that would kill any human instantly. Your body thrives now in its own conditions, in stillness, in darkness, in the pressure-free environment of complete relaxation. Perhaps ships rest in those depths, broken, scattered, slowly being consumed by bacteria, by time, by the patient chemistry of seawater. Perhaps Flight 19 lies somewhere on the abyssal plain, the aluminum of their wings slowly corroding, dissolving, becoming part of the ocean, part of the cycle of elements that flows through water and stone and living things. Perhaps the Cyclops rests upright on the bottom, a monument to loss, barnacles growing on her rails, fish sheltering in her holds, the manganese she carried slowly leaching into sediment, joining the mineral wealth of the seafloor. Your own atoms will return to Earth someday, will cycle through other forms, will become ocean, become stone, become stars, but not tonight. Tonight you simply rest, simply are. The physicist Werner Heisenberg taught us about uncertainty, showed that at quantum scales, we cannot know both position and momentum, that observation changes what we observe, that reality is probabilistic rather than deterministic, fuzzy rather than fixed, and perhaps this applies to the Bermuda Triangle as well. Perhaps the act of looking for mystery creates mystery. Perhaps our need for unexplained phenomena generates them, not through supernatural means, but through selective attention, through confirmation bias, through the very human tendency to see what we expect to see. Your expectations fade now. You expect nothing, want nothing, simply drift in the uncertainty principle of consciousness, neither here nor there, neither awake nor asleep, suspended in probability. Carl Jung spoke of synchronicity, of meaningful coincidence, of patterns that connect events not through causation, but through significance, and the Bermuda Triangle, with its recurring disappearances, its repeated patterns of loss, might be understood as synchronistic, a clustering of meaning rather than a clustering of mechanical causation. This does not make it supernatural, does not require aliens or Atlantis, only requires that we acknowledge that meaning is real, that significance operates according to different logic than physical cause and effect. Your dreams will be synchronistic, connecting images and emotions according to dream logic, according to the grammar of the unconscious mind that speaks in symbols, in feelings, in truths that resist translation into waking language. Indigenous peoples around the world have always known that land has power, that certain places carry energy, significance, that geography is not neutral, is not merely physical, but is alive, conscious, capable of relationship with those who approach it respectfully. And perhaps this wisdom, dismissed by Western science as primitive, as superstitious, contains something we have lost, something we need to recover. The understanding that place matters, that some waters are different from other waters not because of measurable differences in temperature or salinity or depth, but because of something else, something that instruments cannot detect but hearts can feel. Your heart feels this, feels the aliveness of the world, the consciousness that permeates all things, and responds by slowing, by opening, by connecting to that larger awareness. The philosopher Martin Heidegger wrote about being toward death, about how human existence is fundamentally shaped by our knowledge of mortality, by the fact that we will die, that those we love will die, that everything ends, and the ocean, particularly in places like the Bermuda Triangle, confronts us with this fact, strips away our illusions of control, reminds us that death is not an abstract concept, but a physical reality that comes sometimes without warning, without explanation, without mercy. And this confrontation, while frightening, can also be liberating, can wake us to the preciousness of life, to the miracle of each breath, each heartbeat, each moment of consciousness. But tonight, consciousness fades, and this too is good. This too is necessary. The little death of sleep that prepares us for the great death we all must eventually face. Stories are how humans make meaning, how we organize experience, how we transmit knowledge across generations. And the story of the Bermuda Triangle, whether factually accurate or not, serves important functions. It teaches respect for the ocean, teaches humility before natural forces, teaches that despite our technology, we are not masters of the world. It keeps alive our capacity for wonder, our openness to mystery, our acceptance that knowledge has limits, and these lessons are valuable. Perhaps more valuable than the literal truth of whether these particular waters are statistically more dangerous than others. Your mind learns through story, stores information as narrative, and will process today's experiences tonight in dream. Will create stories that make sense of sensory data, emotional experiences, random neural firing, weaving it all into meaningful narrative. The Bermuda Triangle reminds us that Earth is still wild, still dangerous, still capable of swallowing human constructions without trace. We have paved over much of the land, have lit the night with artificial light, have connected every corner of the globe with communication networks, and in doing so we risk forgetting that the wild still exists, that nature is not conquered, not tamed, only temporarily tolerated. The ocean particularly retains its wildness, its indifference to human presence, its ancient power, and this is important, essential. We need wild places, need to know that not everything can be predicted, controlled, explained. Your wild self emerges in dreams, the part that is not civilized, not rational, not bound by waking rules, and this wildness heals, restores, reconnects you to something older than culture, older than language. Meditation teachers speak of the ocean as a metaphor for mind, the surface choppy with waves of thought, emotion, sensation, but beneath, if you dive deep enough, absolute stillness, absolute silence. The depths where nothing moves, where peace is not the absence of disturbance, but the presence of profound acceptance. And as you sink now, as you dive beneath the surface of waking consciousness, you move toward those depths, toward that stillness, your thoughts becoming quieter, more distant, like sounds heard from underwater, muffled, irrelevant, fading into background noise as the silence deepens, becomes complete. The ancient Greeks believed that sleep and death were brothers, Hypnos and Thanatos, twin sons of night, and there is wisdom in this. Sleep is a rehearsal for death, a practice, a temporary dissolution of the self that prepares us for the final one. But sleep returns us, gives us back to ourselves renewed, restored, reborn each morning into a world that seems fresh, new, full of possibility, and perhaps death too. In some way we cannot know from this side, is a sleep from which we wake, transformed into something we cannot imagine, but do not need to fear. Your body knows this, trusts the darkness, releases into it without resistance. Pilots learn to trust their instruments, especially when flying through clouds, through fog, when all visual reference is lost. The body's sense of up and down can be wrong, can be dangerously misleading. And pilots who trust their feelings instead of their instruments often die, spinning toward the ground while their inner ear insists they're flying level. But what happens when the instruments fail? When the compass spins? When radar shows nothing? When radio gives only static? Then the pilot must trust something else, must navigate by stars, by sun, by intuition, by guess and by God. And sometimes they make it home, and sometimes they don't. Your instruments are failing now. You cannot tell which way is up, cannot distinguish between dreaming and waking, cannot navigate by reason. And this is perfect. This is exactly right. You don't need instruments here, don't need to navigate, just need to let go, to trust the darkness, to fall. The Bermuda Triangle has given us a vocabulary for disappearance. When things vanish inexplicably, we say they've gone into the Bermuda Triangle. When projects fail for unclear reasons, when objects go missing, when people drop out of contact, the triangle has become metaphorical, linguistic, a shorthand for mysterious absence, for unexplained loss, and language shapes thought, shapes perception. By naming this phenomenon, we make it real, give it power, allow it to structure our understanding of disappearance, of loss, of the gaps in knowledge and experience. Your language centers are shutting down, words becoming slippery, meanings unstable. As the dreaming brain takes over, as communication becomes imagistic, emotional, symbolic. There is a Buddhist teaching about emptiness, about how all phenomena are empty of inherent existence, exist only in relation to other things, only through interdependent causes and conditions. The ocean is empty of oceanness, is only water molecules, minerals, microorganisms, currents and temperatures. No essential oceanness can be found. And the Bermuda Triangle is empty too, is only arbitrary coordinates, human projection, accumulated stories. No essential triangleness exists independent of our thinking it does. And yet, this emptiness is not nothing, is pregnant with possibility, with meaning, with the potential to become whatever we make of it. Yourself is empty too in this sense, not a fixed entity, but a process, a flowing, a becoming. And in sleep, the self dissolves most completely, becomes most obviously empty, most clearly a construction, a useful fiction, a story we tell. The ocean breathes, scientists say, through a process called thermohaline circulation, cold, salty water sinking at the poles, flowing along the ocean floor toward the equator, warming, rising, flowing back toward the poles in surface currents. A vast, slow breath that takes 1,000 years to complete. The ocean breathing, and you breathing. Your breath now so slow, so shallow, barely moving, barely there, synchronizing with larger rhythms, with the breath of the planet, with the inhale and exhale of existence itself. And as you breathe, you become the breathing, not the breather but the breath, not the ocean but the flowing, not the self but the process, dissolving, gone. Ships continue to cross the triangle. Airplanes fly over it daily. Tens of thousands of people pass through without incident, without mystery, without adventure, just routine transit from one place to another. And for them, the triangle is ordinary ocean, unremarkable water, a region they pass through barely noticing. But for us, for those who know the stories, who have heard the legends, who have felt the pull of mystery, the triangle remains special, remains charged with significance, remains a place where anything might happen, where the ordinary rules might suspend, where we might glimpse something beyond the everyday, beyond the explained, beyond the knowable. Your everyday consciousness has suspended. The ordinary rules of waking awareness no longer apply. And in this suspension, in this gap between thoughts, between breaths, between heartbeats, you glimpse something that cannot be named, cannot be spoken, cannot be remembered upon waking, but which nonetheless touches you, changes you, heals you. The triangle persists because we need it to persist, need a place to put our mysteries, our questions, our sense that reality is larger and stranger than we've been told. And this need is not weakness, is not foolishness, is profound wisdom, is acknowledgement that materialism is insufficient, that rational empiricism, while useful, while necessary, does not exhaust what can be known, does not account for the fullness of human experience, for beauty, for meaning, for the sacred, for the numinous that breaks through sometimes, in certain places, in certain states of consciousness, like this one you're in now, this hypnagogic twilight where boundaries dissolve, where the impossible becomes possible, where mysteries are not problems to be solved, but truths to be lived. And so we leave the triangle as we found it, mysterious, beautiful, terrible, real and imaginary, dangerous and safe, explained and unexplained, holding contradictions easily, the way the ocean holds all things, holds dissolving ships and living whales, holds sunlight and absolute darkness, holds birth and death and the vast middle ground of being. You hold contradictions too, are awake and asleep, here and elsewhere, conscious and unconscious, self and no self. And in this holding, in this acceptance of paradox, you find peace, find rest, find the deep restoration that comes only when we stop trying to understand. Stop trying to control. Stop trying to be anything other than what we are in this moment, which is tired, which is heavy, which is ready, so ready to sleep. The ocean waits, patient, eternal, indifferent to our theories and explanations, continuing its ancient rhythms, breathing in, breathing out, taking what it takes, giving what it gives, keeping its secrets. Your secrets are safe too, held in the depths of unconscious, protected, preserved, waiting for you when you wake. But you're not waking, not yet, not for hours. You're sinking, have been sinking, are nearly at the bottom now, nearly at complete rest, nearly at perfect peace. And there, in those depths, in that darkness, in that silence so complete it has weight, has presence, has texture like velvet, there you find what you were always seeking, not answers, but the peace that comes from releasing the need for answers, not understanding, but the rest that comes from accepting mystery, not control, but the freedom that comes from surrender. And you rest, finally, completely, utterly, floating in the dark water of consciousness, suspended between being and nothing, present and absent, yourself and the universe. And it doesn't matter which, doesn't matter at all. The triangle above you now, you beneath it, submerged, safe, held by water that holds all things, surrounded by darkness that surrounds all things, becoming part of the mystery rather than separate from it, becoming ocean rather than swimmer, becoming answer rather than question, becoming silence rather than sound, becoming, being, sleeping. Sleep now, deeply, completely, letting the story end, letting consciousness fade, letting the Bermuda Triangle keep its secrets as you keep yours, as we all do, mysteries within mysteries, ocean within ocean, dream within dream, sleep within sleep, deeper, deeper, gone. Rest well in these dark waters, in this mystery we all inhabit, in this beautiful, terrible, wonderful, strange, ordinary, impossible, real Bermuda Triangle of existence, where everything vanishes eventually, and nothing is ever truly lost, because it all becomes ocean, becomes water, becomes the great flowing, the endless current, the eternal tide. And you are that tide, that flowing, that eternal return, sleeping now, dreaming now, at peace in the deep, where all questions cease, and only the mystery remains, perfect, complete, infinite. Sleep.